Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And today we're exploring a perspective on Pope Francis that might seem a little out there.
A little unusual, you could say.
Yeah, so our source material is this YouTube video
Right.
featuring Elena Martin, who refers to herself as a hypno-operator,
Okay.
and her partner, Calogero Grifasi.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they're taking a look at Pope Francis, but from a very different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, using a method that's not exactly mainstream.
Yeah, so right off the bat, we're dealing with something that's, not your typical analysis, and I think that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating.
Exactly. It's pushing the boundaries a bit,
Yeah.
forcing us to consider possibilities we might not have entertained before.
So let's jump right in Elena's method, which she calls hypno-operation.
Right, hypno operation.
Yeah, so she claims to decode what she calls etheric DNA,
Yeah.
and then uses that to reconstruct the original form of individuals.
Okay, so for those of us hearing about etheric DNA for the first time, what is that exactly? How's it explained in the video?
Yeah, it's presented as a sort of energetic blueprint,
Okay.
something that goes beyond our physical genes to reveal these deeper influences.
Got it.
And the video suggests that this etheric DNA can give us these insights into someone's personality, their motivations, even their destiny.
That's a pretty big claim.
It is a big claim, and then Elena applies this to Pope Francis.
Okay, so how does that work?
Yeah.
And how do you apply this idea of etheric DNA to a specific person?
Well, that's where things get really interesting because the imagery she uses to describe his etheric DNA is wild.
Wild in what sense?
She describes it as this multi-species hybrid with a Joker-like smile,
Yeah.
snake-like appendages, and this unsettling green porous energy.
Okay, that's definitely a vivid picture.
It's a lot to take in visually.
It is, and I think that's the point. Whether we take that imagery literally or not, those symbols do make you think.
For sure.
What does it say about power, about manipulation, if the Pope's deeper essence is depicted this way? Is it a reflection of him as a person? Or could it be about the institution he represents, the weight of the papacy itself?
It's a great question, and it gets even more intriguing because the video claims that Jorge Mario Bergoglio's etheric DNA drastically changed after he became Pope.
So his election somehow transformed his energetic blueprint.
Exactly, suggesting he somehow merged with the energies of all the previous popes.
That's a powerful image, the idea of this kind of spiritual or energetic inheritance.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
I mean, does each new pope inherit the burdens, the triumphs, even the struggles of those who came before?
Right.
Does the office itself carry an energetic imprint?
It really makes you wonder about the true toll of leadership, especially in a role as ancient and powerful as the papacy.
Absolutely. And the video definitely seems to suggest a link between this accumulation of energy and the Pope's declining health and energy levels.
Yeah, it even goes so far as to claim that his attempts to be more conciliatory and flexible, while perhaps well-intentioned, have backfired.
In what way?
Well, the video suggests it's led to a loss of power and influence for the church.
Interesting. We entertain that idea for a moment. It raises an important question.
Which is?
Can good intentions have unintended consequences?
Yeah.
Especially within such a complex and deeply rooted institution as the Catholic Church.
That's a really good point. We often think about leadership in terms of strategy and personality, but what if there's this whole other dimension, an energetic component that we're only just beginning to understand?
It's certainly something to ponder, and I think this video, while it might not provide all the answers, definitely invites us to think differently about leadership.
Yeah.
And the forces at play behind the scenes.
Okay, so speaking of forces at play, the video gets even more specific when it comes to the Pope's declining health.
Okay, how so?
It doesn't just attribute it to, the burden of the papacy, but to something else entirely, a depletion of energy caused by opening portals during events like the Jubilee.
Now, this is where things get really interesting. For those unfamiliar, a Jubilee is a major event in the Catholic Church, attracting millions of pilgrims.
Huge crowds.
Exactly. So to say these gatherings involve opening portals is definitely a bold claim.
It's stepping into some pretty esoteric territory.
It is, and it immediately makes you wonder, what exactly are these portals?
Right.
And could leading such a massive event really drain someone's energy on that kind of profound level?
Yeah, that's a big question, and it makes you think about the nature of energy itself.
It does, and the role it might play in these large-scale events.
So how does the video explain that connection between the Jubilee, the portals, and this depletion of energy?
Well, think of it this way. The Pope, as the spiritual leader, is holding space for all these people, their hopes, fears, and prayers.
Okay.
It's like being a conduit for a massive flow of energy, which the video suggests can take a toll, especially if someone is not energetically prepared or protected.
So it's not just about the physical demands of leading such a huge event,
Right.
but also about this energetic exchange that's happening on a much deeper level.
Exactly. And that leads us to another intriguing claim in the video, a prediction about the future of the Catholic Church.
Oh, yeah. This is where the video really starts to speculate, right?
Yeah, it forecasts a slow decline for the Church.
Okay.
And even suggests the next pope might be a much more authoritarian figure, metaphorically described as black.
So a pretty stark contrast to Pope Francis's more conciliatory approach.
Exactly. Predictions are always tricky. But I think it's important to look at the reasoning behind this one.
Okay, so what are some of the factors that the video points to?
Well, it mentions trends like the rise of alternative spiritualities, disillusionment with traditional institutions, and the changing role of women in society.
Those are all pretty significant shifts in the cultural landscape.
They are, and the video argues that these shifts could contribute to a decline in the Church's influence.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, those are definitely things that the Church is grappling with right now.
Right, and it'll be interesting to see how those trends continue to play out in the coming years.
For sure, but before we get too deep into the future of the Church, I want to go back to something that really stood out to me, the anecdote about the Satanic book.
Oh, yes, that was a rather jarring detail.
The video mentions an event where the Pope allegedly gifted a leader a book about satanic rituals, and the way it's presented, it's almost like a casual exchange.
Right, it's presented in a way that suggests it's not out of the ordinary.
Exactly, and it immediately makes you wonder, does this reveal a hidden side of the papacy? Or could it be a case of misinterpretation or the video taking something out of context?
It's a good question, and it really highlights how our perception of events, especially those involving figures as shrouded in mystery as the Pope, can be shaped by how information is presented.
Absolutely. We can't jump to conclusions based on one anecdote.
Of course not.
But it does make you curious, right?
It does, for sure.
Like, what was the context of that gift?
Right.
What was the Pope's intention?
Exactly. It opens up a whole rabbit hole of questions.
Yeah. And amidst all this talk of power institutions and hidden agendas, the video eventually shifts to a much more personal focus.
How so?
It attempts to connect with what it calls Bergoglio's human essence, which it claims is buried beneath layers of programming and control.
Okay. And how is that essence described?
Well, the language is quite striking. It's referred to as wind.
Wind.
Yeah, this pure, almost childlike energy that's been suppressed or hidden.
So even someone who holds a position as weighty as the Pope is still, at heart, a human being.
Exactly, with a unique and valuable essence.
It's a powerful message, and I think it resonates deeply with that idea that we all share this common human experience, regardless of our roles or titles.
So it's like the video is saying that even the Pope is on a journey of self-discovery, just like the rest of us.
Exactly, and that journey isn't always easy.
Right. It can be messy, confusing, even painful at times.
Precisely, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
It's about coming home to ourselves, to that authentic self that's always been there, waiting to be rediscovered.
So putting aside the specifics of this video's methodology for a moment, what can we as listeners take away from this deep dive into the Pope's etheric DNA?
Well, I think there are a few key takeaways here. First, it's a reminder that there's always more to people than meets the eye.
Yeah.
We all have hidden depths, complexities, and layers of experience that shape who we are.
And it's not just about other people, it's about ourselves too.
Exactly. We all have that wind within us, that spark of something unique and powerful.
Right.
And it's about having the courage to explore that, to peel back the layers and rediscover who we truly are.
Absolutely. And if our etheric DNA, or let's say our energy, is shaped by our experiences and choices,
Right.
then we have a responsibility to cultivate it, to make choices that align with our true selves, and to create a world that supports that kind of growth and evolution.
I agree. So in a way, this exploration of the Pope's etheric DNA is really an exploration of our own capacity for transformation.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so compelling. It's not just about the Pope or the Catholic Church or even etheric DNA. It's about the human journey, the search for meaning, and the power we all have to create a more authentic and fulfilling life.
Powerful stuff.
It is, and it leaves us with a lot to ponder.
Indeed. But before we wrap up, there's one more intriguing detail from the video that I think is worth exploring.
Okay, what's that?
Remember how Elena described Bergoglio's essence as wind?
Yeah.
And how she helped him create this beautiful, unique space where he could be that wind freely.
Yes, it was such a striking image, a sense of liberation and coming home to oneself.
Well, here's the thing. She also mentions that he's not alone in that space. There's something else there with him. A single strand, a thread that he insists on keeping with him.
A thread. What could that symbolize?
And why is it so important to him even in this space of freedom?
That's the mystery, isn't it? And that's what takes us into the next part of our deep dive.
This thread, this single strand that Bergoglio clings to, even in this liberated space, it's such a potent image, it really makes you think.
It does. And what's so fascinating is that it speaks to the complexity of human nature,
Yeah,
Even when we're talking about someone like the Pope.
absolutely.
Even after shedding all those layers of programming and control, even while embracing his essence as wind, there's still this one thing he can't or won't let go of.
It's almost as if this thread represents a connection to something he can't sever.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a reminder that even in our most liberated state, we're still shaped by our past, by the choices we've made, by the relationships we form.
It's a powerful thought, isn't it?
It is the idea that we can't just completely erase who we've been.
Right, even when we're striving for this kind of freedom and liberation.
Exactly. And maybe that's not even the goal. Maybe complete isolation isn't necessarily the same as true freedom.
So are you saying that maybe this thread represents a need for connection, for belonging?
Perhaps it's a symbol of that inherent tension between our desire for freedom and our need for connection. We're complex beings.
We are, and it makes me wonder if maybe this thread is also a challenge.
And in challenge in what sense?
Like a prompt for further growth, a reminder that true transformation requires us to examine the things we cling to, even if they no longer serve us.
That's a great point. It brings us back to that idea of self-discovery being a journey, not a destination.
Right.
Even in this seemingly liberated space, there's still work to be done, more to uncover.
And the video doesn't give us any easy answers. It leaves us with this lingering sense of mystery, like, what is this thread? Why is it so important to Bergoglio?
Exactly. And I think that's part of what makes this exploration so compelling.
Yeah.
It doesn't wrap everything up neatly in a bow. It leaves us with questions, prompting us to reflect on our own journeys and what we might be clinging to.
I know, I'm definitely thinking about that now. What about you? Any personal reflections coming up as we delve into this final layer?
Well, I'm struck by the idea that maybe true freedom isn't about severing all ties, but about choosing which threads to hold on to consciously and intentionally.
So it's about making those choices with awareness.
Exactly. And maybe it's about recognizing that some threads, even if they represent challenging experiences, are part of what makes us who we are.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's not about erasing our past, but about understanding how it shaped us and choosing how we move forward.
And sometimes even letting go can be an act of holding on,
Held on to what?
holding on to the lessons learned, the growth achieved, even as we release the need to define ourselves by those experiences.
This has been such a thought-provoking deep dive. We started with this unconventional look at the Pope, but it's really led us to reflect on some universal human experiences.
That has.
Leadership transformation, the search for meaning, and ultimately what it means to be free.
And I think the beauty of this deep dive is that it doesn't offer definitive answers, but instead invites each listener to grapple with these questions in their own way, through their own lens of experience.
So as we wrap up, I'm curious, what's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this exploration?
I hope they're left with a sense of curiosity, a willingness to explore the unseen forces that shape our lives, and a deeper understanding of their own potential for growth and transformation.
Beautifully said to our listener. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it sparked some new insights and inspired you to continue exploring the mysteries within and around you. Until next time. It's almost like this thread represents something he needs to feel grounded even in this free-flowing state.
Right, exactly. And I think that speaks to a really important point about the nature of freedom.
Which is?
Well, it's not always about letting go of everything. Sometimes it's about finding a balance
Okay.
between holding on and letting go, between structure and freedom, between our past and our future.
So maybe this thread represents that balance for Bergoglio.
Maybe. And it also raises the question of what exactly is he holding on to?
Right. What is this thread? What does it symbolize?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the video doesn't give us a definitive answer.
This are left to speculate.
We are. But I think that's part of the beauty of this whole exploration. It invites us to engage our own imaginations, to come up with our own interpretations.
Yeah, it definitely leaves a lot of room for personal reflection.
And I think that's one of the key takeaways from this deep dive, that ultimately the answers we're seeking might not be found in some external source, but within ourselves.
So it's about looking inward.
Exactly. It's about turning our attention to our own inner landscape and exploring the unseen forces that shape our lives, our choices, our beliefs.
And maybe even the threads that we cling to.
Absolutely. Those threads might represent different things for each of us,
Okay, like what?
Well, they could be past experiences, relationships, fears, desires, all sorts of things.
And maybe by examining those threads, by understanding why we're holding on to them, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and our own unique paths.
Exactly. It's about becoming more conscious of the forces that are at play both within us and around us.
And maybe that awareness is the first step towards true freedom.
I think so. It's about recognizing that we have choices and that we can choose to hold on to the things that empower us and let go of the things that hold us back.
It's a powerful message, and it's something that I think we can all apply to our own lives, regardless of our spiritual beliefs or background.
Absolutely. This deep dive into the Pope's etheric DNA has really been a journey of self-discovery for all of us.
It has, and it's a journey that I think is worth continuing even after this episode is over.
Agreed. And remember, even if you don't subscribe to the idea of etheric DNA or hypno-operation, the insights and reflections we've shared can still be incredibly valuable.
They can, and I think that's what makes this deep dive so special. It's not about pushing a particular agenda or belief system. It's about exploring possibilities, expanding our perspectives, and ultimately empowering ourselves to live more authentic and fulfilling lives.
Beautifully said.
So to our listener, thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration. We hope it sparked some new insights and inspired you to continue questioning, seeking, and discovering. Until next time, take care.